time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
He did a lot of things, a lot of great things here on and off the field. You know, that's just a standard that's been set here by not only Deshaun, but all the guys, the past few guys that came through the program, and also the standard that Coach Sweeney has set here. You know, we're looking as best as the standard. So, you know, it's just something we have to live up to. You know, just try to do our best. You know, every day we put the pass on. So that's just the standard that's been here, and it's always going to be here.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. It is finally here. It is Monday of game week 2017. Hope everybody had a great weekend, and now you're ready for the football season. You can put away all the videos. You can put away all the memes. You can put away all the Twitter edits. None of that means anything. Doesn't matter if you have a DJ in your building or if you're shooting flames out of a cannon. If you can't block and tackle, pass and catch and run, you're not going to win football games. That's what this week is all about. All the other nonsense goes by the boards. We're down to the serious stuff of the season with USC, NC State Saturday in Charlotte, Clemson and Kent State Saturday at Death Valley, and all the other schools in the state. Two of them beginning on Thursday. We'll go through the lineup of the upcoming weekend for you here in a little bit. Got a great show here on this Monday night. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, the Professor Tom Hayes back from his vacation here at our studios in downtown Columbia. Now we're going to hear from Kelly Bryant, the Clemson starting quarterback. The Tigers released their depth chart for Kent State today. We'll break that down for you. And Zach Willis joins us tonight. He'll be a weekly staple on Monday nights at 7:30. The former Newberry coach, former assistant at USC and Michigan State, former head coach at Pikeville and at Mount Union in Kentucky. He's got a load of football experience, as you know, and his job is to break down the Gamecocks and Tigers for us on a Monday night to give us that first taste. That's why we're calling it First and 10. He's first up on the week. He's got 10 minutes to break it down for us. We look forward to having him with us. So, guys, whether you're ready or not, it's coming at you like a freight train. It's going to knock you over because it comes quickly and it goes fast.
Well, it was a longer offseason, I think, for a lot of people. It was a short one for Clemson fans because of the fact that they had their season extended happily because of the national championship. But I think for fans across the state, I think the waiting always gets to be a little bit longer. The anticipation continues to be something that you look at. And I know the one thing for USC fans that they're looking for is they want to see whether the Jake Bentley they saw at the end of the season will be the one that they see at the start of this one. And for Clemson, the obvious question mark, obviously pro, is the fact that Kelly Bryant, can he fill the very oversized shoes left behind by Deshaun Watson?
Short answer is no. He's got to fill Kelly Bryant's shoes. If you try to duplicate or try to pretend that you're number 4, you'll never get it done. He's got to play his game.
Yeah, no question about that. He's got to be comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah.
And this is the problem that he faces, and that is the way you frame that question. Everything he does or everything Hunter Johnson does or everything Zarek Cooper does is going to be measured against what Deshaun Watson did.
Again, that's not an unfair thing. I mean, the fact of the matter is, that means that they did well with him.
Well, it is unfair in that he's not Deshaun Watson. I mean, I think most football people will tell you that Deshaun Watson is a once-in-a-generation type of quarterback. You don't get those in every class. Now, maybe Clemson thinks they've got another one coming in Trevor Lawrence, who had a big game on Friday. Hunter Johnson is supposed to be that top-flight quarterback recruit as well. But this Clemson offense stands to take a step back somewhat in the transition from Deshaun Watson to whoever is the next guy to lead this offense in a successful way.
The most important thing, though, Korn, it's not about the numbers that he puts up or doesn't put up. It's whether or not Clemson can still win football games. And you can argue that the defense that Kelly Bryant will have playing opposite his offense is better than the one Deshaun Watson won a national championship with.
That front four, Pro, is well, you look across the country, I don't know that there is a better defensive front four than what Clemson will trot out there.
And they need it because with the transition of the offense to a new quarterback, they'll need it. And this is a big year, I think, for Clemson's offensive coordinators because they've had the luxury of being in the Maserati. Now they got to, maybe have to go to a Yugo for a little while and see how it rides that thing. This is why I want to see their patience in using what I think can be an explosive running game.
Well, I don't know. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest with you. Well, to some degree, I'm surprised. I really thought that Hunter Johnson or Zarek Cooper, more highly touted guys, would win the job in camp. But obviously, they didn't do enough to overtake Kelly Bryant, who came out of spring in position to be number one. Either they didn't protect the football well enough. Probably the bottom line is they didn't protect the football well enough, and they didn't move the offense, get touchdowns, which is, of course, the job of every quarterback to get you in the end zone.
Well, the one thing that I want to at least caution fans, just because Kelly Bryant is the starter week 1 doesn't mean that he's the starter in week 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think that this is a fluid situation. I think that Kelly Bryant is the best quarterback on the Clemson Tigers right now, but there's a reason why you have two guys behind him who are a redshirt freshman and a true freshman. It's because they have high hopes for them in this program. And this opening week against Kent State will be the first time they get to see somebody against them that is not their own personnel. And I think, too, depending on how the start of this game goes, and again, you want to get Kelly Bryant as many reps as possible leading up to Auburn, but I'm very curious to see in that second half, if they go to Zarek Cooper and or Hunter Johnson, how much they can impress.
Well, the interesting thing is Kelly Bryant. Will he add that dimension to Clemson that they don't want to get rid of? The big key Clemson's offense has been the ability to strike quickly. And that ability to strike quickly built leads for them. And so now their defense can dictate what they're going to let you do. And if they don't have that this year, if you notice in the games that Clemson was toe-to-toe with people, is when their defense couldn't dictate what the other offense is going to do. They could stay, very multiple. So that's the key to this offense. Can they build a lead for that defense?
All right, South Carolina and NC State. Boy, this is a difficult game for me to wrap my head around in terms of an absolute winner. We'll pick our winners later in the week. Of course, we can talk about it here early as well. I watched some of NC State last night just to go back and refresh myself. And Ryan Finley, I tell you, he is a good-looking quarterback. He can throw the quick out passes. He can throw the deep down the field passes, and he's got a stable of receivers, and he's got Samuels, who's a multi-position, multi-talented guy who they get the ball to in a number of different ways. I mean, this is the big unknown for South Carolina is the defense. How much improved? We know they are improved. How much improved? Are they 20% better? Are they 50% better? Are they 75% better as a defensive unit? If they're 60 to 75% better as a defensive unit to go with an offense, it should be 100% better. I think that combination is going to bode well for the Gamecocks. But this NC State team, to me, is a bit on the scary side. Now, I know that they've lost some defensive players. They lost a starting corner, Mike Stevens. He's out, won't play against the Gamecocks because of a lower leg injury. Could be Nick McLeod, the former South Point standout, starting in his place. But that's a blow to them, and that should be an area, if you're Kurt Roper, you're taking your red pen and you're circling that spot and saying, we're going to attack that position now.
Well, the most important thing for South Carolina is to get yards on first and second down, whether it's by the run or whether it's by passing the football, because you know that defensive line against what they're saying is a revamped South Carolina offensive line, but we really don't know until they at least take on a defense that's not their own. I have question marks, as many people do, about the offensive line and their ability to run the football. You can't doubt that they don't have the horses. It's about whether or not they have the holes.
Well, the big thing is, I think, is the expanded playbook, because I thought last year their offensive line was in trouble because once the defensive coordinator saw the basic plays they ran, they could overload to one side or another based on the formation they saw them in. This year, a little more variety. I think the offensive line will be better.
All right, going to hit a break. 800-956-7266. We'll be right back.
What could fit more perfectly than to have a world party on the day you came to be? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy 33rd. Sports Talk. Our official birthday is today. 33 years ago, we started.
We didn't get a cake? What's the
I
deal?
ate it. I ate the cake. And I drank the champagne. 1984.
One thing you do not need is another piece of cake.
Thank you. 1984, late August. I never have been able to pin down the exact date. Nobody can remember, but it was late August 1984, leading in
Oh, so it's
to
not
the
even
football
it's
season.
not even an official day, or just you just ballpark the day.
I always go with the Monday before the start of the season.
Getting hashtag
It's
no
kind of
no
our-
hashtag fake news up in here.
No. It's as close as I can remember.
Okay.
In our little studio down on Forest Drive in Columbia with Don Williams and me and Jim Corbett and Clark Newsom. And my job was high schools and Clemson. I was to do high schools, recruiting, and cover Clemson.
It's Tiger Phil right there for you.
And Don Williams was with the Gamecocks, so he had them covered.
Mhm.
Clark Newsom did NASCAR. And I don't remember what Jim did. He's a lawyer now anyway, doesn't matter.
You drank?
So anyway, 33 years in the books. We're into year 34 of Sports Talk and still kicking and not slowing down one bit. Our phone number, 800-956-7266. So what do you think as we head into the season? And if you're a Clemson fan, do you think this is Kelly Bryant's team all season long? We're talking, of course, assuming there's no injury involved here, do you expect that his performance is going to be good enough for the Tigers to win, to be good enough for him to hold on to the job for all what should be at least 13 games? And if the Tigers make the playoffs, of course, they will play more games than that. Kelly Bryant, the starting quarterback for Clemson. By the way, Kent State will be without their coach.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't seen this, he's taking a 2 or 3 week leave of absence for health reasons. So one of the assistants will be running the team against the Tigers.
Yeah, Don Treadwell, who's been a head coach in the MAC before at Miami University, the Redhawks in Ohio there. So it's not like they have an inexperienced guy.
You know what? This is great. You know who Zach Willis was an assistant under at Miami of Ohio?
Don Treadwell.
Don Treadwell.
Get out.
So this will be he'll be able to add some great insight into Don Treadwell. Don Treadwell and Zach were at Michigan State together.
Get out.
Don went to Miami and he took Zach with him. So this will be that's a great little insight we'll have for you when Zach joins us at 7:30. So Kelly Bryant, does he start all 12 games? 800-956-7266. Our email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. Now, our poll question of the week on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, is on the USC NC State game, since we're not doing points here, and it's the better of the two matchups in terms of USC and Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
Who wins Saturday, USC or NC State? Right now, 66% are saying the Gamecocks
Get out.
will beat NC State. Now, this is not taking into consideration points or anything. This is just who's going to win.
Really?
60. Well, consider the audience. 66% are saying the Gamecocks are going to win.
That's a shot from you. It's a little shot.
No. Consider the audience. I mean,
Okay.
we're mostly there's not many NC
Yeah.
State fans who
Yeah.
listen to
I
us or
also know
visit our
people
website.
have a grasp on reality, I would say.
Well, I think Gamecock fans, I think this is a sign that they are optimistic about the upcoming year.
I'm not saying you can't be optimistic. I just know that it's a matchup issue. It's a complete matchup issue for them.
So you're picking NC State.
I'm not saying that yet. I don't want to give away the goose on Monday before the game, but I'm just saying I have my concerns. I have legitimate concerns, and as I'm sure Gamecock fans should.
Well, anytime you open up the season against a team of equal or superior ability, you're going to have concerns.
Of course.
I mean, this is not a walkover game for South Carolina.
Absolutely
This is a
not.
game that they're going to be challenged, but NC State's going to be challenged as well. I mean, I'm sure NC State is going into the season with high hopes, but they look at South Carolina and realize that this is not a walkover for NC State either.
Well, you know, two things that jump out at me if you're a Gamecock fan is karma. One is you played a quarterback who's now a tremendous NFL quarterback in Russell Wilson and knocked him out of the game in the first quarter years ago. And then you come back and beat him again in Raleigh. And when is the last time South Carolina has lost, A, to a team from North Carolina, and B, in Charlotte?
So you're using that against South
so I'm
Carolina.
saying
Are you saying
You're saying they're due, is what you're telling me.
The odds that at some point they got to lose the team from North Carolina.
I'm not saying that there isn't a route or that there aren't routes for South Carolina to beat NC State. I'm just saying there are probably more routes for NC State to be able to beat South Carolina than vice versa.
I mean, there's ways that NC State will be better than South Carolina and will have a route to victory. I mean, I think, as I said earlier on, I think Finley's a very good quarterback. You give him time back there, he can beat you with his arm. He also can run the ball. He's a pretty good pass run option guy. They're pretty good up front. Their receiving core is good. It's the defensive front against South Carolina. But, you know, South Carolina's offensive front now, you know, these guys are all a year older. They have faced some of the best that the SEC has had to offer. So it's not like they're not ready to face good defensive players. And they've got a new offensive line coach who, you know, might have improved some things along the lines of their technique. They've moved some guys around with Zach Bailey moving out to right tackle, Malik Young moving to left tackle, Donnell Stanley staying healthy and giving them a new left guard. I mean, these are all guys at new positions.
I understand. I'm not saying they can't. I just have to see them do it. I mean, the last vestige of memory that you know is that Jake Bentley, for a lot of last year, had to run for his life.
Yeah.
And that's something that you can't unsee. And despite the fact that they are a year older, it's, again, a lot of the same cast of characters.
Well, two key points. They're more athletic at the tackles.
They are.
Not a knock against Zandy, but having him at left tackle, he was miscast. He'd have been better at right tackle. So you're more athletic there, but you lose experience. But the key point is South Carolina, in my mind, has the potential to have a tremendous running game. And what frustrates a line that likes to rush the quarterback more than run play after run play after run play after run play, take their legs out from under them, then you can go with play action.
Yeah. If South Carolina can get the run game going, that's going to really benefit Jake Bentley. And the hope is, you know, from their offensive standpoint, with the three running backs that they've got and what they think is an improved offensive line, is that they'll be able to establish the running game, and that will help set up Jake Bentley, the play action to his core of receivers, which is a very good group.
And I hope to hell I'm wrong, because what have we been talking about the entire fall? The positions that they need to shore up are depth positions on defense and depth across the offensive line. If you look at the opposite team on NC State's side, they have offensive playmakers and they have a very stout defensive front. So matchup-wise, that skews against what South Carolina had coming against them going into the fall. Now, if they've shored up those areas, we'll see it played out on Saturday. But if they haven't, then there are obviously some more avenues that they have to conquer.
Well, depth is the key, because last year, early on, South Carolina's defense kept them in football games. But
more or less. I mean, they gave up some points. They didn't give up a huge number until they got to the end of the year. Remember, they were I think they were the last team in the country to give up 30 points in a game.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. But then at the end of the year, I mean, you know, Western Carolina put a bunch of points up on them, and then, of course, Clemson abused them, and then, you know, South Florida, they couldn't stop South Florida, but South Florida couldn't stop them. Yeah, that was a real shootout in the bowl game.
One thing that will play into the depth concerns is the early look at the weather. Not going to be that hot. It's going to be about the 80s. So that is certainly a good thing if you are concerned about, you know, heat, especially this time of year. It's always something that's concerning. Doesn't look like it could be a problem in Charlotte on a Saturday.
All right, phone number 800-956-7266. Who do you like, Gamecocks or the Wolfpack, and why in the big game Saturday in Charlotte? And will Kelly Bryant be the guy at Clemson all season long? A couple of things we're kicking around tonight here on Sports Talk. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. We'll be back in a moment. It is the Monday of football week here in South Carolina. Good to have you with us on Sports Talk, 800-956-7266. Yeah, right now I'm still leaning a little bit to South Carolina, and I think this is an even game. I really do. I know State's a 5-point favorite, but I don't think people know what to expect of South Carolina. We don't really know what to expect of South Carolina, but because we know them a little bit more, NC State, I'm gonna trend towards the more familiar feel and lean toward the Gamecocks right now. Taking the points, I would say absolutely. If I were a gambling man, I would take South Carolina in the 5 points. I think it's going to be that kind of a game. I don't see either team blowing the other one away here.
No, I don't. Well, that's the thing. I don't think that you're going to see a game that is not close. I think that's the one thing we all can kind of agree on, is that it will be close. The thing that would bother me from a South Carolina perspective is if USC has to come from behind. Kind of similarly to what you were talking about, Pro, when it comes to Clemson. The best avenue for South Carolina to win this game is to get a lead early and to try and hold them off and hold NC State off. Because if you try and turn NC State one-dimensional into a passing offense, then that plays right into South Carolina's hands. South Carolina is going to need to be able to establish Jake Bentley early, establish Deebo Samuel early, and also get that defensive line on its heels. That's the way I think that South Carolina can most easily expect victory.
Well, the interesting thing is we talk about the running game, but if that offense is clicking, and I'm sitting there and I'm calling plays, I'm not so certain I want to see how much yardage I can give Jake Bentley and just throw. Sure. I want to see. I got all these receivers. Let's ride them.
Go Big 12.
So it'll be interesting to see how they play this, because they're going to have to outscore some teams if they're going to beat them. If they're going to go past recent memory, Corn, they came back from the dead in the bowl game when they were down by 18 and tied the game, only to lose it in overtime. So Jake Bentley has shown some comeback ability in his brief history.
All right, 800-956-7266 to the phones in a moment. Clemson did release their depth chart for Kent State, and it's pretty much as you have heard for the preseason. The offensive line, no change there. The starters, the backups, pretty much as is, except at right tackle, where
that's the one thing.
Tremaine Ancrum and Sean Pollard are still battling over there. Richards, the tight end, the receivers. Bryant is your quarterback, with Cooper listed as the backup. There's no or there. It's clearly Cooper, your number 2. Fuller, your starter at running back. On the defensive side, again, your front 4 is as expected: Farrell, Lawrence, Wilkins, and Bryant. Now, Logan Rudolph is backing up Bryant. He's playing with a bad shoulder, so that's interesting.
And that's the one thing too that we were talking about. No Xavier Kelly in the defensive end. No Shaq Smith at the linebacker position. Those are 2 guys who were in the preseason depth that are not on the post-fall depth.
Yeah, Chris Register is the backup at the other defensive end. O'Daniel, Lamar, and Joseph, your 3 linebackers. Then your secondary is Carter and Edmond, the corners. Muse and Smith, the safeties, and then Carter is your nickel back. So that is what the 2 deep looks like for Clemson going into Kent State. All right, to the phones we go, 800-956-7266. Let's go to Stephen in Charleston. Welcome in, Stephen. How are you?
I'm doing great, fellas. How y'all doing?
Well, so far, so good.
Yes, sir. It's Monday. Good as we can be. Just making a couple comments on your 2 topics that you're talking about. I was with most people. I think I even called on the show and we talked about it a few weeks ago about Kelly Bryant. I think most people are just assuming, because we saw it with Watson not too long ago, that, Hunter Johnson, or most likely of the 2, was going to be the one to eventually take over. But 2 things I think we're, basing that off of is, one, whether or not, Kelly Bryant's ever going to be to the level of what Deshaun Watson was, or sorry, not Kelly Bryant, Hunter Johnson is going to be ever anywhere to the level of what Deshaun was. And 2, I just think that, we just all kind of didn't see the passing game coming from Kelly Bryant the last, year or so, but a lot of that's because he was in mop-up duty. So the thing that I look at is that really from what the coaches have said, it really just seems like, he had a firm grasp on it. And, obviously they're young, so you're going to be inconsistent with Cooper and Johnson. But at the same time, they just said that, it was pretty firmly in grasp the whole time that Bryant was going to be the guy. So, I assumed that Hunter Johnson would take over, but at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he can just get any sort of a semblance of a passing game going. I think that Kelly Bryant may actually surprise people, and hopefully, that would be the best situation, is that he would be able to, win the job and use his veteran savvy to, keep the job. So, but and then just real quick about the Carolina NC State game, I know most people have seemed like a lot of people are high on NC State this year. I think they're going to have a pretty good season, even to the point where I've seen some preseason picks saying that they may even have a chance to challenge for the division. I don't know if that'll happen, but just the fact that they have that. Finley obviously looked really good. He looked good last year. I just think that experience, and I know Carolina, like Pro said, they've had the streak against the North Carolina team, but I just really feel like this is a game that NC State with a little bit more, veteran leadership, and I just think they're going to end up being the team to win the game. But I'll hang up and I'll let y'all talk.
All right, thank you. With Kelly Bryant, it's just got to be wait and see. You don't automatically or you don't overnight become a great passing quarterback, especially at this age. You've already now a couple of years into college, and you are pretty much what you are, and you've got your habits, and you've got your instincts, and you've got your good skills and your bad skills. But I think with Clemson and with Kelly Bryant, and I watched some of the Auburn game. Let's see, who did I watch? I watched something with Auburn last night as well. And one thing where you might see them do a lot of with Kelly Bryant, and that is the read option and letting him, keep the ball and turn the corner or even, pitch it to Fuller, whoever is in there at running back. If Bryant keeps it around the corner and has a gap, he's going to make big plays with his legs. And until teams figure that out, and they don't really know what to expect from Clemson until they figure that out, they could make hay with that. But if I'm a defensive coordinator starting with Kevin Steele in Auburn, I'm going to bring 7 and 8 up to the line and say, okay, I know you got good receivers. Let me see if you got a quarterback who can get them the football.
And I don't want to completely parse the comments of Dabo Swinney from what he said during camp. The fact that he said that Kelly Bryant, kind of won it with his consistency, you can look at that one of two ways. You could just say that the fact that the two freshmen were inconsistent, both Johnson and Cooper were just inconsistent with turnovers. But the thing about it is, neither of them did anything to take it away from Kelly Bryant. That doesn't mean that they can't. It just means that on the practice field, they had their inconsistencies.
Well, that's why I'm interested to see this Kent State game, because we know that part of Dabo's coaching is psychological.
Sure.
You don't want to pull Bryant if he has a bad series. You want him to have success. But then again, his success may turn and bring his successor in early, meaning that he goes in and gets a touchdown, and they say it's in the middle of the second quarter. Let's see what the other guy can do. Hey, you got your touchdown. We're going to put the other guy in. See what
I don't know.
It's not open and shut, I don't think.
I think you got to give Bryant as much work as possible in a game situation. He's only taken 100 snaps in 2 years at Clemson. So
I agree.
He's got to get work. And a one touchdown, that shouldn't do it. Clemson should put Kent State away with no trouble by halftime. And maybe in the third quarter, then you can start rolling in your Hunter Johnsons, your Zarek Cooper. But Kelly Bryant's got to get a good 2.5, 3 quarters worth of work, I think, to get ready for Auburn and the real bullets you're going to see the next week. All right, thanks for your phone call. We will continue with calls coming up here on Sports Talk. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Florida's kind of replacing Georgia as your place to go for suspensions. 8 players suspended now for the Michigan game. Jim McElwain said today receiver James Robinson, cited for marijuana possession last week, will not play against the Wolverines. So
laying down the law.
That is a pretty big chunk of players who are going to miss in a big season opening game there between the SEC and the Big Ten. 800-956-7266. We'll be back.
I think, you know, there's been a little bit of talk about that, but for us, really, you know, we're wanting this first group to go out there and play the game, and then how the
It's a Monday edition of Sports Talk from downtown Columbia, our Sports Talk studios on Main Street. The final word in sports every night in South Carolina.
Were you able to get a nice beach weekend in on the weekend?
Was I?
Were you? I'm asking.
Part of the weekend. I didn't stay down the entire weekend,
you
but I
didn't?
was able to get in a little golf and a little sun and a little
I tell you what,
outdoor activity.
weather across the state was magnificent this weekend.
And let's hope it.
Cold beer by the pool, loved it.
Let's hope it stays. It stays, you know, in the 80s. It doesn't turn scalding hot by Saturday. Which right now, like you mentioned, I think we're going to have an opportunity for some good weather both in Clemson and in Charlotte as far as the temperatures go. To Clemson now, Jeff Scott met with the media today, and of course, everybody wanted to ask about the quarterback rotation. Is it going to be Kelly Bryant's game from start to finish? Are you going to roll in some of the younger quarterbacks as well? Jeff Scott, who was Clemson's co-offensive coordinator, said, you know what, let's kind of wait and see and hope for the best with Kelly Bryant, and we'll go from there.
I think, you know, there's been a little bit of talk about that, but for us, really, you know, we're wanting this first group to go out there and play the game, and then how the game goes, the way the score goes, and just the flow of the game and all that will really dictate how the other guys play. But you know, Coach Sweeney says all the time that he wants to play as many. He challenges us as coaches. He wants to play guys that deserve to play, and just because you're on the team doesn't mean you deserve to play. That comes from what you've done on the practice field and having the trust and respect of your coaches and teammates. But we do have a lot of guys on this offense, including quarterback, that have done enough to kind of earn that opportunity when those opportunities come. And so we're just going to have to see how the game goes. And obviously Coach Sweeney and Coach Streeter, myself and Tony, and all be kind of in conversation with that. But to be honest, that's not something other than saying that we'd like to get those other guys in the game. That's really as far as we've taken it to this point. But there's not some set plan or schedule rotation or anything like that because we feel like we have our starter going into the game.
All right, Jeff Scott, Clemson's co-offensive coordinator. So Kelly Bryant, they hope to ride him as long as necessary and then get some of the other guys into that game against Kent State and then go on from there. We've got recruiting coming up for you in a couple of minutes. We will talk about Savion Smith and South Carolina involved with that very, very highly regarded junior college defensive back. We go to Wes, did you say? In Florence. Hello, Wes. Welcome into Sports Talk.
Hey, what's up? I just want to say congrats on your mighty ladder Vikings. Two things. One, do you think they have a good enough team to win you a state championship this year in football, Bill? And number two, I know Trevor Lawrence had a great high school football game Saturday night, but do you think if he does sign with Clemson, he will be the best QB on campus next year? And I will hang up and listen. Thanks.
Well, first of all, I just want to beat Dylan. Just want to beat Dylan this week. Haven't beat him since 1968. Can we just beat Dylan one more time before I expire? That's really all I want. State championship would be nice, but that's way on down the road. The 2A ranks loaded with terrific teams, as David Shelton would tell you. But yeah, my Vikings are 2-0. Congratulations to them. Will Trevor Lawrence be the best quarterback the moment he walks? They seem to think so. The people who follow him and the people who write about him, the national pundits, they're calling him, the best or one of the best high school quarterbacks to come down the pike in a long, long time. Now, I noticed that one of the services, not that I care, they don't rate him as the number one player in the country anymore. They rate the quarterback, the Fields kid, another kid in Georgia, as a better quarterback. I don't know. To me, that's just splitting hairs. This guy, let me tell you what, if you're not aware of what he did on Friday night in a offensive showcase, 18 of 22, 403 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 52-45 win for Cartersville in a game on ESPN. He's 6'6". He's got the big arm. He moves well schooled in all aspects of being a quarterback. He kind of reminds me. I saw a little Deshaun Watson in high school, and all Deshaun did, I'm not going to say all that he did, but the game I saw him, they scored like 60-something points. He just threw the fade. Just stood back there, and he threw the fade, and his receivers went up and got it, and the little defensive backs couldn't do anything about it.
It's a step up in competition, definitely.
Well, obviously, and I imagine Trevor Lawrence does a lot of the same thing. He throws the quick fade pattern to his receivers who catch it and take off. But they say this guy has got an unbelievable arm. You
could ask the same question at USC with Kerryon Joyner coming on campus as well. Would he be the best quarterback on campus instead of Jake Bentley? I mean, that's certainly a very similar type question.
Well, I think if you asked Kerryon, he'd say yes.
Right.
I'm sure if you asked Trevor, he'd say yes. Now, Kerryon on Friday night, he went 13 of 17 for 253 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Not shabby.
55-21 win. However, that was against Colleton County.
Yeah.
They step up in class this Friday night when they play Dutch Fork.
That's a good one.
That's going to be a great
I might have to ride out to that one. Corn.
That's over here outside of Columbia.
It is.
So
it is.
All right, let's do you say Billy? Billy in Southside what? There's no town named Southside. Billy in the south side of Chicago? Where are you, Billy?
Oh man.
Surfside.
Yeah, I'm down in Surfside Beach.
I know you are, Billy.
Stuff, man.
Yeah.
With this tropical stuff.
What's up,
Billy? Not too much, man. Hey, real quick, Phil. I like your opinion on this. With Kelly, I really do. Do you? And I want to get your opinion when I make this comment. When are people gonna start trusting Clemson staff? Dabo just inked an 8-year, $54 million, not because he's a great recruiter and a rah-rah guy and motivates his players. This coaching staff he's assembled, even with I love the replacement for Marion Hobby, but still, Kelly Bryant, if they evaluated him and said he's the man, over Hunter and Zarek, and I mean Chase enrolled a little late, so he, couldn't quite make that push. And of course, Tucker had to, broke Tim Tebow's Florida record, and he had to set back with the injury or the sickness. But I think with offensive line, Phil, and the defensive line, of course, and T. Higgins coming in, along with all these wide receivers and Tavion and the offensive line, I just think Kelly doesn't have to stimulate Deshaun. They don't even ask him to do that. Just check your reads, be able to check down, and put it up for these big receivers. I mean, let's remember one thing, and I'll take it off the air, Phil, is Deshaun had 18 picks last year. Now, Deshaun's a special cat. There's no doubt about it. He had 18 picks and got off to a really, really sluggish start and ended up with 18 interceptions at the end of the year. But there's just a lot of talent on that Clemson team, and I'm going to hang up and get your comments, Phil. Y'all have a good one, my man.
All right, Billy, you too. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt Clemson's loaded with talent, and Kelly Bryant standing in the pocket and throwing the football on a regular basis and hitting a receiver here and hitting a receiver there and splitting the defense down the middle with his passing game. That's something we've got to see.
Right.
We haven't seen it. We haven't had a chance to see it. And I think you're right too, Billy. I'll give you this too. Yeah, you have to trust. If you're a Clemson person, certainly you have to trust your coaching staff. Too many times I have sat here over the last few years and have said, there's no way Clemson is going to be able to replace this guy.
Mhm.
There's no way they're going to be able to replace these guys. You know, I thought the defense would a couple of years ago when they lost all that talent to the NFL, and I wasn't alone, but I said here on the show, there's no way that defense is going to be a top 10 defense like it was the previous year. And Venables, of course, did a great job and had them right back in the top 10, top 15, despite all the losses. So when you doubt him, when you doubt him is sort of when they go out and try to prove everybody wrong. And I think Dabo loves to hear people say about him and his program, you can't do this, they can't do that, and then they go out and they do it.
He's assembled one of the best staffs in college football. I think he's got the best assistant in college football on the defensive side there in Venables.
Their strengths at the line of scrimmage will tell the tale. Why does Alabama get the 3 championship games with 3 different? Because their lines of scrimmage, defensively and offensively, have stayed consistent.
Not bad skill position players on those teams out of the
No.
bro.
And the 3 quarterbacks weren't bad either. You know,
No.
one of them is still pretty good and Hurts, and I mean the guys before him.
But they weren't NFL
chopped liver.
caliber quarterbacks, though. That's not the thing.
Well, isn't one of them still in the NFL?
AJ McCarron is,
Yeah,
but he's
yeah.
a backup. It's not necessarily
the
a
Bengals.
huge.
That's not too bad being a backup in the NFL, one of the top 64 quarterbacks in the world. All right, we'll be back. Top of the hour break. All right, coming down in 3, 2, 1. Former LSU defensive back Savion Smith is now at Mississippi Gulf Coast Junior College, and USC and Alabama are the two schools working him the hardest at this point. He says he'll take official visits to both. He actually took an unofficial visit to Alabama last weekend. He says he's regularly in touch with USC head coach Will Muschamp and defensive coordinator Travaris Robinson, and both recruited him when they were at Florida. Clemson offered Nebraska commitment defensive back Brendan Riley Hiles of IMG Academy, and he's planning to take an official visit with the Tigers. Clemson also offered 2019 linebacker Drake Thomas of Wake Forest, North Carolina, and USC offered 2020 quarterback Luke Doty of Myrtle Beach. Phil Kornblut, South Carolina, Radio Network Sports.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
All right, hour number 2, Sports Talk on this Monday night, heading into the opening weekend of the college football season. Recruiting coming up for you in just a couple of minutes. Heck, we'll be into week 3 of the high school season in South Carolina in terms of actual games by the time we get to week 1 of the college season. Let's welcome in David Shelton of the High School Sports Report and the Charleston Post and Courier as we reflect on this past Friday night in high school football in South Carolina and, of course, peek ahead to the game of the year coming up this week. But, David, what did you think about this past Friday night? What really caught your eye?
Well, I mean, I think the way Burns has started the season 2-0 with 2 really impressive wins over Myrtle Beach and Greer is noteworthy. South Point has destroyed 2 5A schools in their first 2 weeks, beat Northwestern and beat Nation Forward last week. And Darion Kendrick is just, man, he is making a case. Boy, he's really having an outstanding year to start the year. And, you know, Fort Dorchester got through their first 2, and now they can finally focus on Dutch Fork, which will be a huge game. And, you know, teams like T.O. Hanna that are starting off 2-0. Conway is 2-0. So I mean, there's some good, interesting storylines as we start the season. Chapman, their quarterback, 5'9", 165 pounds, throws for 350 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns. Quarterbacks really had a good week last Friday night. I mean, there were some outstanding quarterback numbers put up around the state. It's kind of become the trend lately.
You mentioned Kendrick. I mean, what was he, 18 of 18 throwing the football?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good when you don't throw it on the ground. Every pass you throw gets caught by your team. That's pretty impressive. 330-something yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns, and didn't play, the whole game because they were beating Nation Ford. And Nation Ford is a pretty good team.
Yeah. And
they beat them 53-0. So it's not like, they're beating up on also Rans. They beat Northwestern last week very handily, and Northwestern came back and won this week. So they're obviously, I mean, they're still Northwestern, but I think South Point, I honestly think you could make a case, and I don't think it would be hard to make. They might be the best team in the state. They could beat Fort Dorchester and Dutch Fork, or certainly they would be competitive. It would be a very close point spread, but I think you could make a case. The last 2 years, actually, that South Point may be the best in the state. Boy, I'd love to see it. We never will, but boy, that'd be fun to watch.
Absolutely. I'd buy a ticket to it. And then you've got TL Hanna with a win on Friday nights over Spartanburg, and the Vikings, of course, they had to play shorthanded without some players. They're off to an 0-2 start. They get their guys back. You see them, I mean, they've scored, but their defense has had some issues here these first 2 games. What are you hearing coming out of Spartanburg? And obviously, there's time to turn it back around. Can they get it turned back around?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about Spartanburg. We're talking about Chris Miller, and I mean, they didn't forget how to coach football over the summer. And if you go to Twitter, Spartanburg people, the fans, are freaking out, and they're 0-2. It's like, the old Aaron Rodgers, relax, let this thing play out. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win a state championship, but let's just say this. I was talking with Joe Call, the Somerville coach, earlier today, and he was like, David, they're good. They got some players. And he expects them to be okay. You only got to win 5 games at the end of the year. If you win those last 5, you're the state champion. You can go into the playoffs at 6-4 and win those last 5, and you're the state champions. And that's what these coaches at these schools are pointing at. We got to get better as we go. You got to get in the playoffs, which I would think they would probably make the playoffs. And then you just get on a hot streak. I was talking to Steve LaPrade the other day. He was like, yeah, we want to beat Fort Dorchester this week, but we want to win the last 5.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ones we want to win. So, just everybody calm down. And I mean, if Spartanburg's 0-8, okay, then you worry. But I don't think we're going to see that. I think they're going to be okay. They got to get better. I'm not saying they're loaded, but they got to get better. But again, you're talking about history of Chris Miller and what he's done. They're probably going to get better.
Now, I should say they had a big offensive game against Somerville, but got shut out against Hanna, and they were shorthanded. But here's my question. Dorman and Spartanburg, a combined 0-4 to open the season. I mean, that doesn't happen in that city very often. I mean, you have to go back a long, long time, I guess, to find that. And the people in Spartanburg, the high school football fans, have got to be kind of beside themselves over what's happened here to open the season.
Yeah, I think if you had said in early August, here's what's going to happen. Conway and Hanna are going to be 4-0, and Spartanburg and Dorman are going to be 0-4.
Yeah.
You could have probably took some people's money.
Yeah.
Again, Dorman can score. Dorman's got some offensive people. They're young on defense. Gutshaw knew that coming into the season. He said it's going to take some time. They had a really good first half against Fort Dorchester and kind of fell apart, which, to carry on Joyner is going to make you do that. And then they caught a Northwestern team who was bruised and battered and pissed off, to be honest with you. And they caught them, a very good offensive team, and they gave up some yards and some points. But I mean, both games they've had a lot of yards. They had close to 500 yards the other night, or they might have had more than 500. So I mean, I think they're going to be okay too. But they still got both teams still got to play the Burns and the Gaffneys, and Boiling Springs is pretty good. So it's not like they're just going to walk through their region schedule. But you take history and you take the fact that these two staffs have won before, have won consistently forever. You just got to think they're going to put it together at some point.
David, how surprised were you the way that Boiling Springs Ashley Ridge game played out?
Kind of not very. I don't think Boiling Springs offensively is great right now. They lost so many good players, but I think they're going to hang their hat on their defense. Now, I was surprised that Ashley Ridge had zero success running the football. I saw them the week earlier. They had 300 yards rushing against Cane Day, and I thought maybe that was an anomaly. Maybe I didn't see what I saw, but maybe Boiling Springs is really good on defense, because Ashley Ridge only had about 30 yards rushing and became one-dimensional, and they're not good enough to do that against a team like Boiling Springs. But you know what? A lot of people expected, me included, Boiling Springs to maybe take a step back, maybe to 6-7 wins. That may not be the case, but it's only one game. So again, it's a small sample, but we'll see how they do going forward. But obviously, that's a good solid win, but Ashley Ridge is not gonna contend for a state title.
I got to ask you quickly, the big matchup, teams that are 2-0 out of the gates, dominating their opponents, the game everybody's talking about. Of course, we're talking Latta Dillon. Who do you like?
You really going to ask me that? You're really going to ask me who do I like between Dillon and Latta?
Do you give us any chance at all
of scoring?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think you can score.
Okay, that would be, that would be success to some degree.
Hardcore.
Yeah. Considering the history of that series, I think scoring a touchdown will be good. No, Latta's we talked when you were down here, when we were talking, and I was being serious. Latta is improved. They made a good run in the play. They're a better team, better program than they've been in a while, but we're still talking about Dillon.
Yeah.
So let's just leave it at that. I mean, it could be a competitive game, or it could not be. I hope for your sake it is, because you'll be in a really bad mood on Friday night.
You got that right. Real quick, on a more serious note, 30 seconds, and we'll talk more about it on Friday, but the true big one, Fort D and Dutch Fork. We'll ask you for a winner Friday, but what kind of game are you expecting?
It will be very competitive. I think Dutch Fork has a pretty good defense. I think, having seen Fort Dorchester the other night in person, they're really good on defense. I don't think it's going to be 49-40. I think you might see a little less scoring, and both teams really have one or two guys on their offense that can break plays. So it's going to be an interesting game. Again, it's September, and the one that counts is November. But I think it's a great early season matchup.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that they're playing each other.
Thank you, David. We appreciate it as always. David Shelton, also known as Bib, Best in Business, here on Sports Talk. Back in a moment. Okay, we're back at his Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network here on a Monday night heading into the football weekend. And David Shelton and their high school football report brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. With new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau Insurance, you could be saving a whole lot of money. Even if you've received a quote before, rates are now more competitive than ever. Get a no-obligation quote today at faverates.com. That's F-A-V-E rates.com. All right, let me give you the recruiting, and then special guest is coming up here with some good information for you, something you're going to want to get involved with, and we'll bring him on board in just a moment. But I do need to do recruiting on this Monday night. Defensive back Savion Smith, Mississippi Gulf Coast Junior College. Of course, he started out at LSU as a highly recruited corner. Played in 10 games last year, 4 tackles. He left the program in May, deciding to transfer. Right now, USC and Alabama are his only 2 offers, the only 2 schools that have gone after him with any zest and made him offers. He knows Will Muschamp and Travaris Robinson from when they were at Florida, so he's got a relationship with them. He doesn't know that much about the USC program, but he does know Muschamp and Robinson, and he likes both of those guys a lot. Now, he was at Alabama this past weekend, watched them practice, and, of course, Alabama being Alabama, you have to be impressed there. But he's not caught up in all the history of the programs, and it's just going to be wherever he feels like he is the best fit, not rushing into his decision. Plans to take officials to USC and Alabama, no favorite. He'll be a December grad with 3 years to play 2. Clemson offered Nebraska commitment defensive back Brendan Riley Hiles of IMG Academy. This according to TigerNet, and he said he'll take an official visit with the Tigers. Clemson made the top 12 with 2019 defensive lineman Ishmael Sopsher of Amite, Louisiana. Clemson also offered 2019 linebacker Drake Thomas of Wake Forest, North Carolina. USC offered quarterback Luke Doty of Myrtle Beach. He's in the 2020 class. In basketball, 6'9" Manny Bates of Fayetteville, North Carolina, has set 4 officials, according to ElevateHoops.com. Georgetown this weekend. NC State September 8th, USC the 15th, and Georgia Tech the 22nd. USC target 6'7" Jericho Helms of St. Louis was at NC State over the weekend. 6'9" Javion Fleming of Canton, Mississippi, who has a Clemson offer, named his short list as Alabama, Georgetown, Iowa State, TCU, and Texas A&M. And 6' Michael Beckel of East Hanover, New Jersey, committed to the Citadel. There you go with recruiting. Remember to check it out on our website regularly, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag #STRecruiting. Let's welcome in good friend Bob Ibach from Chicago. You know Bob because he's a giver of nice gifts via Sports Talk, autographed footballs. Well, not really autographed, commemorative footballs and basketballs as a result of the success of our teams here in South Carolina. And now Bob has got an offer for you having to deal with Deshaun Watson. Do you not, sir?
I certainly do. Good evening to you, and nice to be back chatting football. It's that time of the year coming up. I know Clemson's going to be opening up this weekend against Kent State, and looking to go ahead and hopefully come back to that the Final Four, if you will, the tournament that they've been in the last 2 years. And I know last year Deshaun Watson was so instrumental in getting the Tigers that title, and we did a real nice commemorative championship football, if you recall, back in January, which completely sold out, all 5,000, to raise a lot of monies for a great charity at that time. And we've got something now that we're working with Coach Dabo Swinney, his Dabo's All-In Team Foundation, which I know a lot of folks throughout the state are very familiar with. They help out breast cancer awareness. They do some things through their life programs for special needs children. They also have a program there that impacts drug and alcohol addiction. So they've done some great things in recent years, and I know Dabo and his family have been very instrumental in putting that together. what we have for fans, specifically Clemson fans, but if you're just a good college football fan, you may want to get one of these as well. It's an official Rawlings football, full size. Only 2,017 of these will be produced. It comes with a real nice acrylic display case so you can set the football up in your office or in your man cave, and it really looks stunning. They're only $99 with the proceeds going to Dabo's All-In Foundation. And in a moment, I'll give out a toll-free number and a website how you can get these. This is the first day that we're promoting this, and I do want to point out normally we do about 5,000 footballs. We're only doing 2,017 of these. But before I give out that phone number and the website, I do want to point out a couple of the panels on this ball are very distinctive. One of them has the salutes of 2 national titles won by Clemson back in 1981 and, of course, this past season. It'll have the official logos from those years, along with the scores of the game, the opponents, and some of the details and how they won. We have a second panel, which is a tribute to Deshaun Watson and his great Clemson career, leading the Tigers to the national championship last year and to the title game the year before. And it's got a color photograph of him in the center with some of the highlights from his career on one side of the panel. It is really, really stunning. And then the last panel right below that is a beautiful color panoramic photograph taken of Clemson Stadium last year during a really nice sunny autumn day. It stretches from one end of the panel to the other, really makes the football pop. So it's very, very exclusive. It's officially licensed by the NCAA and approved by Clemson. Again, these are $99, and they come with a display case, and it makes a terrific upcoming Christmas or holiday gift idea for that Clemson fan. So if you'd like to order these, the toll-free number where you can call beginning tonight is 1-800-345-2868. Again, that's 1-800-345-2868, or just go right to the website. You can see the football there. You can order it online. NIKOsports.com is the website. It's spelled NIKCO sports.com. And our goal there is in the next week or so, we can sell all 2,017 of these footballs, raise a ton of money for Dabo's All-In Team Foundation. And I've got to say that in the last, 4 years, we're up to about $2.5 million that we've raised for charity. And a big shout out to all the listeners on your end down there, because a lot of that's come from the state of South Carolina.
Well, I'm just glad we've got teams down here giving you something to sell.
It seems like I've been down there quite a bit between the basketball program last year at the Final Four and the last couple of years with Clemson's football team. And certainly we've been down there before with when South Carolina won their NCAA baseball championship. So it's been a fun time.
Well, Bob, we thank you, my friend. We'll talk to you again later in the week. And again, that number for everybody who wants to get this, $99. And this sounds like a great item. We've seen the other stuff, and you know that if you've bought them, you know how quality they are. 800-345-2868. And the website is NIKOsports.com. All right. In fact, we've still got we've given some stuff away that we have gotten from Bob, and we've done that before. We've got more we're going to give away
on the national level. Also, we had a Super Bowl package that we gave away with his stuff involving both the Falcons and the Patriots. Of course, John Mart's Falcons, of course, going down in the Super Bowl. Want to just at least
and going down the tubes too, and pros Falcons as well. What did I tell you? What are they done? What are they 1-2 in the preseason? Going down the tubes.
Now here's the key.
Preseason's
If it's Green Bay 1-2, Phil would say, "Oh, it's just a preseason."
I do want to point out the Yankees are losing, by the way.
It's early. Hey, they're moving the BYU LSU game?
Yeah, they're moving it to New Orleans. They're going to play it in Superdome. It was supposed to be played in Houston on a neutral site contest. They've had that very similarly to what they have in Atlanta, a singular standalone game there to start the year, and they're moving it to New Orleans. But it will still be neutral site.
And last year it was Florida that had to go to LSU.
Well, LSU
somehow the weather gods are in cahoots with LSU.
I'm telling you.
And they still think that they will probably have at least a majority LSU crowd. It was supposed to be a majority LSU crowd anyway, but now it even ensures that further.
All right, Zach Willis, our first edition of First and 10 with Zach Willis coming up in a moment. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes all back together, all set to rock and roll for another football season here on Sports Talk. And tell you what's coming up. Tomorrow we'll be covering the press conferences at Clemson and at USC. Yep, a Talking Tuesday. We'll bring you Dabo Sweeney and Will Muschamp and their thoughts leading into their season opening game. Wednesday, we're up at Spartanburg. We'll be at the Marriott for the first of our in-season football kickoff shows, our Pigskin Preview Live program. It'll be with the Wofford Terriers, Wofford and Furman. Big matchup, no matter when they play, old rivals. And they'll be playing this Saturday in Spartanburg, and we'll be located at Mesh the Terrace inside the Marriott, the beautiful Marriott in Spartanburg. I tell you, you go in that Marriott, you feel like you should be in Paris or something. It is that nice. Not that, not that Spartanburg doesn't stand up nicely next to Paris. Have you ever been to Spartanburg?
I have been to Spartanburg.
Okay, well, so you know what I'm talking about.
Paris as well.
Paris, Texas. Which one?
Paris, Virginia.
Yeah. So we are looking forward to being up there with the Wofford folks and Coach Mike Ayers beginning his 30th year there with the Terriers. And I was just thinking about this the other day. I think I'm right about this now as I go around the state. I think Coach Ayers is the only head coach, college head coach in the state who's older than I am.
Interesting.
I think I've got everybody else beat in
and
the
only
state.
one
So
that looks like Mike Ditka.
yes, he does. Yeah. Yes, he does. We look forward to that. All right, let's get to our first and 10 with Zach Willis here on a Monday night. Former Newberry head coach at Pikeville College, head coach of Mount Union, assistant coach at USC, Michigan State, Miami of Ohio, and a Furman grad to boot. That's probably number one on your list, being a Furman grad, because that's not easy.
No, that wasn't easy being a Furman grad. Getting admitted was hard. Being a graduate was even harder.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's good to have you with us. We appreciate you stepping up to share your vast football knowledge with us here on Sports Talk as we get ready for the South Carolina and Clemson games each week. And interesting, Kent State playing Clemson without their head coach and naming their quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator, Don Treadwell, as the interim coach, and he's a guy that you know well.
Yeah, Treddy is a great friend of mine. He took me, we worked together at Michigan State. He was our offensive coordinator, and I was an analyst and very close to him, and literally sat right beside him when he did play calling and helped him with that at Michigan State. He was incredible at doing that, and then took me with him to Miami of Ohio, and I worked as a recruiting coordinator, assistant head coach, and special teams coordinator, whatever else he needed. So,
yeah.
A great guy, and happy for his opportunities for him, however brief it may be.
Yes. And the situation they're stepping into at Clemson with the first game for the defending national champions, but a lot of that team is gone. This is now Kelly Bryant's offense.
Well, they're gone, but trust me, Clemson, one thing that they've done well for a very long time, and they've only gotten better at, is recruit field. And basically now it's just reload, especially against a group like Kent State. I hate it for Coach to get in there and face that group, but they may have the two best interior D linemen in the country in the front four. They're definitely up top five for sure. And, Clemson's loaded talent-wise. The key for them down the road is going to be experience and getting that, and, the guys that have the talent putting experience with it and making things go.
As far as the defense goes, Zach, I almost think that, one of the things that's the key for Clemson is the fact that they do return so much on that defense. Would you say that this defense is better than the one that Deshaun Watson's offense won a national championship with?
I mean, the football, the fan in me says yes. The football coach in me says let's just hold our horses and wait and make sure they prove it on Saturday. But from a talent and experience ratio, I mean, when you look at the two and grade them out, I don't think there's any question they ought to be. They've got huge big game experience and a ton of depth. I mean, the talent level doesn't drop off very much at all. You got 4- and 5-star guys sprinkled throughout that depth chart. So they're loaded.
The quarterback situation with Kelly Bryant now the starter, and it's totally unfair to compare him in any form or fashion to Deshaun Watson. So let's just close the door on that and wipe the slate clean. But this is a guy who is a good athlete, who's never really showed that he can be, at least publicly, a great passer. Why do you think it is, as an outsider trying to evaluate this thing, that he won the job? And is it possible to go from a very sporadic average passer to a passer good enough to lead this Clemson offense to an offense that's used to averaging 35 points a game or more?
Well, the thing about Clemson that makes him so good is, when Chad Morris was there, he built a lot of flexibility, and a lot of people didn't know this, but in talking to their staff, Taj Boyd always struggled throwing a slant route, which people would be stunned to know, but they kind of shied away from that. And it was something that South Carolina picked up on and kind of gave it to him because he couldn't throw it as well as you would think a Heisman Trophy level guy can. Quarterbacking is all about decision making and leadership. And he might not could throw on the slant, but he was incredible at leading his football team and winning and staying cool under fire. And that's what I'm betting that Kelly Bryant's a whole lot better than what we've seen. Clemson's obviously got a premier level coaching staff. You don't win national championships and you dang sure don't beat Alabama. I think one of the better Alabama teams we've seen in the national championship game and absolutely crush Ohio State and not know what you're doing. So they've seen something in him that would give me pause to say, hey, I want to see this kid under fire and see how he responds, but I would expect he'll do well.
Zach, switching gears to USC, there are obvious areas of concern on the Gamecocks who are trying to come back off of a 6-7 year last year. What are your areas of concern, not only broadly, but specifically going into an opening game against a tough NC State squad?
Well, I think, first of all, offensive line. I've looked at the things you guys have looked at, and honestly, anytime you go into a season, the first game out, man, if I'm Will Muschamp, I'm not real happy. I want to be playing Kent State if I'm him in my home stadium, paying whoever it is a guarantee to beat up on somebody. Because the NC State's not a pushover. Their defensive front's really tough. Now, they lost the DB the other day. It's going to help maybe the long ball be there because they've lost 3 starters off of that team in the defensive backfield. And we know Carolina's got a quarterback that can throw the football, and they've got receivers that can stretch the field and make plays. My biggest concern is the O-line and the special teams, just because it's the first game. It's on the neutral side. It's against a very, very competitive opponent.
Thinking about the opening game and the rest of the season, does a quarterback that's been through the wars with a bigger playbook, how can that conceivably help an offensive line that was hamstrung by a smaller playbook the year before?
I think it helps. Well, number one, when you got a great talent like Shula Bentley, and this kid's got a ton of confidence, he's a great leader. You can tell he's enthusiastic. He loves to compete. I think that it helps them because they have answers. The more options you have in your playbook, as long as you can master them, and you can execute them, you got an answer for everything the defense conceivably can throw at you for the most part, and you're never fully out of a ball game. There were times last year, as you know, where there wasn't any hope. Clemson game is a great example. They couldn't protect Shooter at all, and that part of that was talent.
You mean Jake?
I'm sorry, Jake.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I know the Bentley family really well, and you're right. He played at Rutgers. I apologize.
That's okay.
But yeah, I mean, Jake took a beating in that ball game. I like the way he came back. I wouldn't expect anything less from him than what I saw. But they've got to start out with protecting him, and the more protections you have in that you can master. And I want to say you got to be able to do them right. That's the key.
Hey, Zach, we're moving the chains, man. You got your first down, 1st and 10. We appreciate it.
All right.
Talk to you next week. Be right back. The preseason of the NFL winding down. One more game to go before we get down to the real stuff. Panthers got a preseason win over the weekend, defeating Jacksonville 24-23. I guess it wasn't over the weekend. I guess it was last Thursday?
Last week.
Played that game in Jacksonville. Let's welcome in. Maybe Mick remembers. When did you do this game? You remember when you did it? Was it last Thursday?
It was Thursday night, but I'm about so tired from staying up watching the McGregor and Mayweather fight. I got my circadian rhythms are all jacked up.
I called that fight correctly, if you remember, Corn. I just want to make sure that we get that out there on record.
We're talking about the Panthers here.
But
Thank you very much.
We had that right.
24-23. You got the win over Jacksonville. Now, you got the Steelers coming up. Does it look like Cam's going to get any playing time, or are they just going to hold him out and go with the regular season?
They're going to wrap him in cotton and have padded booties on him, and they're going to take his helmet away where he cannot possibly even masquerade as another player and get out there. Just ice him down get him ready for opening day at San Fran. It's normally the game, Corn, that the regulars don't play. The starters, I wouldn't think many starters would play Thursday. This is a time for some of the twos and threes to distinguish themselves.
So is Cam ready? Will he be ready, healthy, and fully ready to go when the regular season opens?
I really think so. I watched him a little bit at practice today. It's cooler weather here in the Charlotte area than it has been. He seemed energetic and sharp, and I think he feels good about his shoulder. There was that concern early when he maybe overdid it at training camp the first 5 days. I think he's good. I think he can't wait. I think he thinks he's sitting on top of a good football team.
Mm-hmm. There's always been a referendum, Mick, about how much you use your starters in the preseason and kind of how cautious do you want to be. I'm almost wondering if we're getting to a point where we might see people sit whole preseasons after you're seeing some of the injuries that pop up around the league. The Odell Beckham situation in New York. Obviously, Julian Edelman is lost for a season in New England. How much do you think we're going to see next year? Some of these things go even a further step back.
Any other sport other than football, I'd say you're right on it, and there's be some science behind it. There's just something about this Spartan game that you have to practice it, and you have to have the repetitions, the rehearsal. It's just so many moving parts to this game that I think it makes me really. What all this does is it makes me wonder how the colleges do it. I mean, I was in the stadium today. I was walking around the upper deck, and I was looking at getting ready for the NC State South Carolina game. That's coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's Saturday.
Am I right on that?
You're correct.
Yeah, how's your field look? Your field look good?
It's unbelievable. It looks like Augusta National. But I thought, for South Carolina and NC State, there is no preseason. I mean, it's on and popping. It's a high-stakes game, and I'm sure these coaches are worried. They're worried right now that they can even get out of the huddle and everybody clap at the same time.
That reminds me, I meant to call you. Can I use your luxury suite Saturday? Is that available?
Yeah, we'll send the limousine down for you. Just let me know when you want to be picked up.
I was going to ask for that too, yeah.
It's interesting. Cam Newton, running is a part of his game. But with this shoulder injury, a two-part question here. Does he reel back his running, Mick? And has the message gotten to the NFL officials to protect this guy from some of the hits he's gotten?
The second part of your question, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully so. Cam doesn't want special treatment. He just wants to be treated normally and equitably, and that's all his coaches want for him. But as quarterbacks evolve, they tend to run less. I think Newton will still run when he's in the red zone, when it's certain down and distances, that component will still be there. I don't think it's running that hurt his shoulder. I think it was more the repetitive motion throwing that got to him. But my golly, you got other guys that can run. Get the ball to 22.
Hey, in these last few days of camp before the big cuts, what are there any battles still to be determined, do you think, in terms of maybe individuals or a position? What's still out there to be determined as far as you can tell?
great battle at punter. Michael Pilardi, left-footed kid. Andy Lee, the proven veteran. Lee's a home run hitter, got the big leg. Pilardi's a better directional punter. Pilardi's cheaper, so we'll see how that plays out. Two fullbacks, Daryl Young and Alex Armand, both very talented and both deserve a shot. Linebacker, Buller, Jeremy Cash, Jared Norris, David Mayo. You got tons of backup backers who are fighting to get on the 2 deep. Backup tight end is another one. They're wide receiver with Burson, Demir Bird. I think Demir's done enough, but we'll see. Everywhere you look, I bet there's 5 or 6 positions that are up for grabs right now.
Boulware, what do you think? Is he going to make it?
Well, I could see him going on the practice squad. It's such a deep, any other team, the Panthers have such depth at linebacker, but I know the coaches love him. He's the question for him would be his short area speed. Can he, with NFL offensive players are so fast, can he hold up with people whizzing by his head here and there? I don't know. I think the coaches think the answer is yes, so we'll see.
All right. Are they dressing the field up for this Belt Kickoff Classic? Logos, team colors, that kind of stuff?
I don't know, Corny. Good question. I saw the scoreboard. The ribbon boards look good. I saw some of the state and South Carolina graphics, and it looked like it was being made ready. So I do know that there'll be enough, because hydration is very important this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
I know that fans of both the Wolfpack and the Gamecocks will want to stay hydrated, and so I think the concession stands will be well stocked.
Yes. All right, my friend, enjoy your game Thursday against the Steelers, and then we'll get back to real stuff with you starting next week. We appreciate it, as always.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much. Okay.
Good
Mick
dude.
Mixon, voice of the Panthers. And
by the way, Carolina will wear their road whites for that contest.
Road whites against the Wolfies. Okay.
The Star Wars
Very good.
uniform, the all white.
It's it'll be interesting.
That's their road.
Yeah.
I guess they're the.
They are technically the road team.
Yeah,
is
the
what
designated
was
visiting
what
team.
it was said to me.
All right, so
you said you had some audio, John Mark, that you wanted to share from last week.
Well, it's not my audio to share. This is not my segment here, Will.
Like
this is something you should toot your own
shut
horn
up.
on.
Something's afoot.
is this the setup we were talking about earlier behind the scenes here? Everybody's smiling about
something's afoot.
And telling
even if he has to pull him up with his own two hands, he will do everything he possibly can to milk this fight for the full duration.
Some people are so narcissistic.
I don't
believe that at all.
Oh, come on.
Are you serious?
I'm absolutely serious.
Oh, no, you're crazy.
I'm not crazy.
If he's got a chance to knock him out in the first minute, he's going to knock him out in the first minute. I'm telling you, round and minute. 2 minutes in, round two. So,
I think. And if they would have called the fight after 3, McGregor would have won.
No, you're right, though. Ever since Muhammad Ali knocked out Sonny Liston, there's always a question when a guy we didn't get our money's worth. What are you doing? So I agree with you. Probably look closely, you saw the marionette strings holding him.
Well, I did get the winner, okay? I did.
You and everybody else in the world. They weren't even taking McGregor for the win at some places in Vegas. Come on, man.
Did you watch the fight?
I watched the whole darn thing, and it went exactly the way I said it was going to. He dragged him through 10 rounds.
Are you okay?
I'm great.
All right. Because it sounds like you've been sucking a little helium there when you get a little excited.
I'm all about it.
Okay.
I'm all about it. I just want to make sure
Is that what you were smiling about back there, John Mart? I knew you look like the cat who had swallowed the mouse.
Oh, no, that's not. There's another mischievous thing.
Oh, when is
for
that?
Later in the week.
Oh, is that right?
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
He's always got a trick.
Tomorrow night, a Talking Tuesday. We look forward to it all. I get to make the trip up to Clemson this time.
Well, you drew the short straw on that one.
You'll get your opportunity Saturday. And we'll have the Gamecocks and the Tigers covered for you right here on Sports Talk.
Bring back some stuff from the ESO Club for me.
Yeah. Thank you, Pro. Thank you, John Mart. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.